Hold on tight for the next hour. You're entering into a place, a zone called the alternative to the alternative media. It's a place, a special place where even truth seekers fear to tread.
All right, people, let's move like we've got a purpose.
Affirmative.
Okay, glad you're back on the Investigative Journal on this Thursday, July 27th, 2017, day on our calendar. I'm your host, Greg Anthony, and you're listening to the Investigative Journal. I'm going to continue with my second-part interview with Sherman Skolnick that I did in 2005. But before that, I want to mention, go to my website at arcticbeacon.com, and that'll direct you to my new site at Greg Anthony's Journal. .wordpress.com, and you can press the donate button then and keep the show on the air, because all month we're running a pledge drive to see if we could raise enough money. I've got a dollar figure that I need to make if we can keep this show on the air longer than the end of August. So that's kind of my deadline. So let's see if we can spread the show around. Tell your friends about it. I mean, there's got to be people that are interested in this side of the story. And why don't we, pass it around, put it on Facebook, Twitter, all those things, and let's see if we could get a few people to help out. Any little bit helps, and if you can afford it, I'd really appreciate it, because I think this information is important, and it's worth something, folks. It really is. So anyway, go to arcticbeacon.com. I appreciate it. All right, I'm in the middle of an interview I did years ago with a man by the name of Sherman Skolnick. A lot of you youngsters out there won't know who he is, and I hope you care about things like this. I find that the dumbing down of America is getting so scary that, it also spreads to other countries. Because when I live in another, I remember when I first moved into Italy in the 70s. No, it was late 80s. I mean, during the mid-80s. There was influence of the West, of America, but not like it is today. I mean, if you're in Mexico and certain parts where I'm at, you might as well be in America. The only difference is I have to learn their language. But how come when many Mexicans come to America, they don't learn ours? So I figured, why not go over here? So if I'm in parts of Southern California, everybody speaks Spanish there. So I figured, what the hell, I'll come here and it's a lot cheaper, and then I can learn Spanish. So if you have any Mexican-American friends, tell them to learn English. It's important. But, America makes it too easy for people, because they put everything in two languages. They don't give an incentive. When I went to Italy, I had to learn that language. I had to assimilate. And, it was great. And when I'm here, I'm doing the same thing. I got to figure out every word, because Spanish is a little different than Mexican. And I've been so busy lately working that I haven't really had the time or energy to really buckle down and learn this language. But I'm going to do it. And hopefully some of my Mexican friends in America who have trouble with English will start learning it as well. It's important. Okay. Sherman Skolnick. This guy, listen, I said it yesterday. I said, this show is good. And he's back during the Bush administration. But, man, his late-night conversations were great. And he was one of these guys that was fact-oriented, and he brought a lot of different things to the forefront. Now, many things he did, especially the higher up you go, get forgotten about. I mean, a lot of the indictments, remember with Cheney and all that stuff. They got it so locked up in Washington that, look, if the Justice Department of the Republican Party will not look at the Clinton Foundation, look at Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton's, body count and all the felonies she committed openly while she was Secretary of State, if they won't do that, the fix is in. Trump doesn't care. He's there as a showman. He's part of the little club with them. They just play the Hegelian dialectic. He's on the left. He's on the right. They're on the left. And there you go. Now, think about this. I'm going to make a statement that will come true, and people, you're going to have to live with it. Now, you know Obamacare. Okay, what a travesty that is. But the real reason Obamacare was passed was they knew it was going to fail, so what they want to do is a one-payer, government-controlled system, like they have in Canada and other places. They're going to tell you what to do, who to see, what drugs to take, and they got you by the you-know-what. Now, if the Republican Party, and if what I'm saying is not true, they would have immediately got in there and repealed and replaced it, but they're jacking around. They're never going to do anything. They've been trying to do this for years. Now they get their chance because they have the House, the Senate, and the presidency, and their votes are failing. They can't even repeal it today. They can't replace it. They can't do anything because they work together. And what's going to happen in the end is you're going to be involved, you kids out there, you're going to have a single-payer system. The government's going to control the doctors, they're going to control the drugs, they already do mostly, and you're going to be just a number. And healthcare, the proper healthcare is going to go down. If there is proper healthcare, there used to be a little bit. You're not going to be able to go in there and get good good nutritional training. You're going to have to do that on your own. But if there's nobody there to go to and they control the system, how can you? That's what they want. It's going to be a single-payer system because the Republican Party and the Democratic Party work together. And one way to control the population is to control the medical establishment so they can control your body. Now, they've already figured out ways to control your mind, and that is through the propaganda machine in Hollywood and through the newspapers who are all working, whether they're on the left or the right, they're all working together to really just make you a robot. And it's working. It's working because I see it. Pretty soon in another 50 years, you might as well just put a chip, into the person and let him just be a robot. And in fact, somebody sent me an article recently. They're actually chipping workers in certain companies in America now. Chipping workers, to work for a company, you're going to have to get chipped. And people will do it just to make money. And they know that. So, they're going to get your body totally when they have a single-payer government-controlled healthcare system like Canada. And people from Canada, they rush over here to get better care. And let me tell you this. So they got your mind with the propaganda machine, and they got your soul and your spirit through the Jesuit order and all this, the ecumenical movement and everything else, the one world religion, the Satanists that are buffaloing people into thinking that they're Christians. And I know some of the people that listen to my show don't fall into that category, but it's a very small group. That's why we have a hard time staying on the air. Do you think these guys that run these stupid... I was listening, there's a guy named Dave Hodges. He's always out there, right? And he's always given this BS stuff. And I said, this guy's kind of weird, but he gets thousands and thousands of listeners. And then the other day, I get a copy, people send me a copy of his show, and he said this. He said, you're not going to believe why NASA is destroying all the photos and all the records of the moon landing. And I'm going, oh, okay. He said, because I have talked to astronauts, and when they were up there, they saw things, buildings, and replicas of alien contact. This guy is so full of bull, because we never went to the moon. But people listen to him. And thousands of people, and he gets money. It's kind of like Alex Jones, millions of people, and it's all BS. Oh, he gives you some stuff. Of course. I mean, he can't just not. But he's on their team. That's what people want. They don't want the truth. Oh, there's a few people, maybe, 100 of you out there? Or maybe more? That say, well, this is the greatest information in the world. Okay, what a little club we do have. But I'm talking to the people, the millions, that have been brainwashed, their mind, body, and soul taken away. And it's only going to get worse. So my question to you is it worth it? Is it worth it to keep talking? It's like talking to the wall, and it bounces back at you. And pretty soon it's going to knock you out. So I'm going to run a last-minute pledge drive in the month here and then make an evaluation. Because what do they say insanity is? You keep doing the same thing over and over again, and it doesn't work. But anyway, if you want to keep the show going, tell your friends about it. Maybe we can raise enough money to do it. But it takes time and effort that I put in for years. And if nobody wants to hear it, then why do it? So anyway, while we're still on the air, why don't I put on Sherman Skolnick and just preview it a bit? I got about 25-30 minutes left of this. Sherman was a go-getter. I knew about him when I was a kid. He put Otto Kerner, who was our governor of Illinois, and then he became a federal court judge, into jail. He was known as the Judge Buster. He was a relentless researcher, and he got involved because of a fraud scheme that took his parents' house when he was a young man. That's how he started. I don't think he said that in the interview. Maybe he'll mention it today. But let's get right to Sherman Skolnick here on the Investigative Journal.
Put in a Chinese name followed by French indictments into Google, and you will see that there have been stories published in Europe about this, but the American monopoly press does not see fit to go into it. So those are things that need to be understood. The whole background of Mark Rich and what he's doing currently. Mark Rich supplies weapons to terrorists that harm Americans. There's a whole list of things what this international swindler does. And by the way, he launders his money, Mark Rich does, into billions of dollars through the markets in Chicago, principally the Chicago Mercantile Exchange.
Okay, so what I wanted to mention as we're going into a break there in 2005, he just said it yesterday, so I'll clear it up. Mark Rich, if you don't think that they work together, like Bush and Clinton, Trump and Hillary Clinton, Trump and the Democrats and Republicans, they all just play a game with you. Nothing gets done. Look at what's going on in Washington now. It's all a bunch of, a few little things get done. You get a little pipeline done here, you put some coal miners back to work, but the real major issues, they're not doing anything, and they don't want to do anything. And what will happen is the Republicans will fizz out, the Democrats will get back in, it'll be a stalemate, then there's going to be a big war, and, we're being played for fools. But anyway, here's the deal with Mark Rich. He was very close to George Bush, okay? And Bush protected him. Then, when he had to scurry away, he was on the FBI's 10 most wanted list, and in the 12th hour, right before, I think it was 1 minute to midnight before Clinton got out of office, Bill Clinton, he pardoned Mark Rich, one of the biggest criminals that you heard Sherman say. But that's okay. Well, innocent people go to jail, right? So anyway, we'll get back to Sherman right now. Okay, here he is.
Details. I'm giving you a few highlights. Obviously, when we finish this program, I'll probably remind myself that some of the important details I still didn't touch even by way of the highlights. I'm just giving you a few highlights as I remember them. So far, Mark Rich and Libby have not been mentioned in any of the stories in the American press about the indictment of Libby in the CIA leak case. Yet they're all tied together with the CIA Coca-Cola money used to corrupt the high court in Bush versus Gore, which is a related situation. In other words, if Patrick Fitzgerald continues with the sealed indictments, which somewhere down the road will have to be opened up, what they're basically doing, Greg, is they think that the American people will go up the wall if all the details are put in front of the American people at one time. It's sort of the same idea why the press won't tell us the truth of who killed President Kennedy. They figure the American people will get berserk. They will accuse the highest level of the government as being corrupt and treasonous, and the country will be difficult to govern.
So in your view, how do you see this thing playing out with Fitzgerald? What do you think the next step is? What could be the next step?
The next step would be, well, Fitzgerald made a very potent statement over the weekend that in the trial of Scooter Libby, Cheney's chief of staff, Fitzgerald is going to demand that Vice President Richard Cheney be there in the courtroom, subject to examination and cross-examination.
Do you actually think it'll get that far?
I've already written 5 years ago what I thought was down the road for America.
Tell us.
Number one, I started a series called The Overthrow of the American Republic. It's now more than 80 parts to that series, most of which are on one or more of my websites. I have written, starting 5 years ago, that the direction that the American government is going, we are going to come to the point where, because of a fictitious presidency, and that is a presidency created by corrupting 5 judges on the High Court in Washington, that we will not be able to continue with running the country through a presidency. We may have seen the last of the presidential elections in 2004, and that the United States, at least temporarily, will be ruled by what I call a troika. The word troika is a Russian word for a wagon pulled by 3 horses. I believe that they will set up an emergency panel of 3 persons acceptable more or less to the American people to run the country in the absence of a presidency. I know that's very unusual and so on, but there are things happening which tend to show that my story about the Troika, which I first started to write about 5 years ago, we're coming in that direction. Because we're getting to the point, and a recent issue of Harper's Magazine has come out with the fact that the United States is in the process of becoming a fascistic government.
Okay, so maybe the Troika didn't happen during the Bush presidency, but you know what? It may be coming. Look what's going on. They're calling for impeachment of Trump. He hasn't done anything. Of course, he does. It's just a big show. Obama's presidency was a sham. He wasn't even an American citizen. And let's just say that when you talk about story, when you say what he's saying, it always doesn't work out in the time frame that the researcher wants it. But his thinking is on track. And if you look at what's happening now, I think there's going to be a last president, a last pope. And something is going to trigger that. I don't know what. But maybe he was right on track. Just a little bit premature. Back to Sherman.
So, Harper's is not known for printing conspiracy theories. It is a very well thought out article. The way the Constitution is being canceled, the way the Bill of Rights is being canceled, and I take the ultimate possibility of a emergency panel attempting to run the government somehow.
Now, do you think Patrick Fitzgerald has been compromised throughout this investigation, or was he compromised in the beginning, or is he just, like you said once, the Lone Ranger with the single bullet?
That remains to be seen. Some of us repose a great deal of confidence in him. It may turn out to be that we are putting too much confidence in him. The problem here with the sealed indictments, and we are the ones that broke the story over this last weekend, and then 60 Minutes, without using the term sealed indictments in their program Sunday night discuss things that relate to the very subject that I'm talking about. I think some of the things that they're putting as national security sealed indictments are actually matters so fraught with horrendous ideas that the powers that be have not found a way to break this idea to the American people for fear it will cause an insurrection. If our troops come back from Iraq, having suffered tremendous casualties there, and they come back in dishonor, there will be blood in the streets in America. At least that's the way I see it. I could be wrong. I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but there is so much false statements in the American press. Our true American casualties are 9,000, not 2,000. Our true casualties of wounded are not 5,000, but 45,000. And when that has to be brought out to the American people, there will be an outrage.
Of course. Now, one thing I was interested in was, in these indictments, do you think that Bush has been indicted too?
Bush and Cheney are named as criminal defendants, but they may go to a fallback position, which is technical, called unindicted co-conspirators. But if they go to the fallback position, neither one of them can rule any further.
Now, can't Bush just fire? Have you heard anything about firing Fitzgerald if he goes any farther than Libby?
Well, the last one that tried to do that was Nixon in 1973. He tried to fire the special counsel, and that had a name to it. It was called the Saturday Night Massacre. Pull it up from Google or any of those that might have historical articles on their website.
Yeah, for our listeners, remember that Nixon tried to fire Archibald Cox.
Yes.
He couldn't get his Attorney General or his second in command in the Justice Department to do it, so he had to rely on Robert Bork, I believe.
The press has not adequately gone into the fact that Bush's advisor, who was this woman he nominated to the High Court, who withdrew her nomination, Harriet Myers, she helped the Bush forces, bring a secret petition to the federal courts in Washington to stop all indictments by way of Patrick Fitzgerald. It finally ended up secretly before the High Court, the U.S. Supreme Court. It requires 4 judges to agree to consider it. Only 2 voted to consider it, so the matter as far as the court system is gone.
What, are they trying to leave Bush and Cheney out to dry now?
Well, I describe it this way. We have a document up on one of our websites showing that the Bush family has $100 billion in a joint account with the Queen of England in her bank in London, her private bank called Coutts Bank London, Coutts. It's on a website we have called cloakanddagger.de. We have that document posted. It's a secret record of a wire transfer with the help of Alan Greenspan, who's the head of the Federal Reserve.
Okay, so I'm going to take a break here. We're about halfway through the show on this Thursday, July 27th, 2017. My guest back in 2005, Sherman has since passed away, was Sherman Skolnick. And, I look back at that, and I was, I had a little bit more faith in the system. I was still in that position of saying, well, maybe there's a way to get the corrupt out of office. But when you look at this, when I look back at it, all of the work that you do, I love digging myself into politics. And let me get back to it. I got to go right now for this break. Back in 3 minutes on the Investigative Journal.
The program you are listening to is 100% sponsored by you, the listener, on this First Amendment Rights Media channel. You will notice that there are few commercials on this radio network. There's a good reason for that. Corporate advertising dollars come with strings that limit program content. So without your help, these programs cannot continue on internet or our several affiliates. If you benefit by the educational law programs, we ask you to give. If you are admonished or nurtured by the Bible and ministry programs, we ask you to give. If some voice a cause that you are passionate about, we ask you to give. If you believe in any of these, we ask you to support them as you would a missionary on a continual basis, as if giving a tithe for missionary radio. These programs are not commercially viable and must be supported by those faithful to the cause of truth. Look for the button to sponsor your favorite programs at our listen and schedule pages on the internet. Then, when you subscribe, we will send you the last quarterly MP3 CD of that program immediately, and continue to do so with each new quarter. We will also give you unlimited archive access to all of our programs. We're asking you to give much less than a tithe, so that you may also send support directly to a particular program host, cause, and anywhere else the Spirit may lead you. Do all to the glory of our God and Creator, for His holy nation, the only kingdom that will last forever. Thank you for listening.
Visit crosstheborder.org, CROSS, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of Nicholas Arthur's new book titled When the Third Temple is Built. That's crosstheborder.org. When it comes to prophecy today, much of the evangelical Christian world has their eyes on Israel, waiting and watching to see when the third temple will begin to be built. The plans are drawn. The Jewish people are eager. Most evangelical Christians today believe that the rapture will happen before the third temple is built. Hi, I'm Michael Eugene. I was taught that Daniel's 70th week was in the future. Is that really what the Bible teaches? Have we searched the scriptures and found this to be true? Why is it so important for a re-established Israel to build a third temple in Jerusalem? Is it necessary to build a temple on the same location already occupied by the Dome of the Rock? Is it necessary for sacrifices to take place in the temple on Temple Mount? Is there really a rapture followed by 7 years of tribulation? What is the New Testament temple? Can we identify history and prophecy? Who is the first beast in Revelation chapter 13? Who are the 7 kings in Revelation 17? I have asked all these questions, and I have found Nicholas Arthur's new book, When the Third Temple is Built, answers all these questions and more using Scripture to interpret Scripture. The Bible says that no prophecy of Scripture is of any private interpretation. Nicholas shows us in his new book, When the Third Temple is Built, how the Bible interprets prophecy and not man's private interpretation. Visit crosstheborder.org, CROSS, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of Nicholas Arthur's new book titled When the Third Temple is Built. That's crosstheborder.org.
The following program is labeled dangerous and off limits by the supreme Jesuit command. But stand tall, people. Listen up, and you may just learn something.
Oh, dear Lord Jesus, this ain't happening, man. This can't be happening, man. This isn't happening.
Okay, we're back for the second half hour. I'm going to finish up the Sherman Skolnick interview, but I got a few comments to make. And I was talking about getting involved in the system. And is it worth it when you really understand that they're playing this game with us? And I think the mistake people make is they shut it out. I think it's really worth it. Because once you understand their game, then you can understand the rules and how they put it forth to you so that you can kind of, when you play chess, which I'll be honest with you, it's just one of those games that I never liked games, to be honest with you. And, occasionally I play, I didn't like card games. I don't know why. I'm just that kind of person. Not to say I didn't sit down to play a game of cards every now and then. But in the rules of chess, you're always trying to stay 1 or 2, 3 steps ahead of the shoeshine man, right? Your opponent. So by shutting off the system, even though, like back in 2005, I didn't shut the system off because I was still learning about it. I still thought there was some kind of hope. I didn't realize that the extent to the corruption, when I say corruption, to the orchestration of democracy in Washington with the Jesuits behind it all. I didn't understand it like I do today, but there was a period of time I just shut it out. I said, oh, there's no hope, don't listen. That was the biggest mistake I ever made. And that's a mistake I hope you, maybe the 100 listeners out there that got their heads screwed on right, don't make. Because once you get it, once you get in, and I'm not saying I got it all, I'm saying I'm a little bit ahead of the game, a little bit ahead of the curve, so to speak, when it goes to understanding their little charade they're playing around the world. But what I'm saying is if you shut it out, you never know what they're going to do. So when I watch Washington, when I watch Australia, when I watch England, when I watch all the moves in the Vatican, I'm trying to think one step ahead. Well, why are they doing that? We know that Bush and Cheney were never going to get indicted. We know that any president, and Clinton, will never see a courtroom and get justice. We know they're protected. It's like the mob. But they play a game, so you got to know where they're moving. What's their strategy? The first strategy is to keep you distracted. But you don't get distracted if you know what they're doing. It's almost kind of like, okay, I'm going to keep track of my enemy. What are they doing? So don't make that mistake. You got to figure them out. And so that'd be like saying, well, let's not look into Jesuit and Vatican intrigue because we know they're going to take over the world. You know, a lot of these Bible people out there that I'm not talking about personal people I know, guys and girls I've got to know. I'm not talking about people that have their heads screwed on right about this issue, but there's a lot of people out there who just say, oh, forget about the Jesuits, forget about all this, because the world is going to end and there's no sense even. I mean, that's the worst attitude I've ever heard in my life. You know? My world ends every night I go to sleep and I wake up again. And it starts all over again. That's the way the world ends for me. And every night I go to bed, when I open my eyes, I go, thank God I'm still here. And people go, well, why? Why? Don't you want to go into the afterlife? Not particularly yet. It's not my call anyway. Is it? Is it your call when you're going to leave, when you're not going to leave this place that you've been put? No. But many people, I think, secretly want that because they're so frustrated with the world. And there's good reason to be frustrated. But in a sense, the more you understand, the better you can cope with it and get through it and enjoy some of the things that you've been put here to do. For example, what's your latest enjoyment today? Now, I've never been a person that likes hobbies. I know a lot of people like that. I meet a lot of people. I never had a hobby, really. I enjoy, when I went fishing, I wanted to be I have this kind of, I love fishing. It's not a hobby. When I go out, it's like nothing more matters to me. I remember I started scuba diving. It wasn't a hobby. It was a challenge. Could I get over this fear? So, I know many people, one of the greatest things I heard, George W. Bush is an artist now. He sits at home and paints. And he's got an art gallery. And I'm going, okay, George, why didn't you do that the first part of your life so we didn't have to be subjected to you for years in the White House? But anyway, I like these little nice things that happen in the day. And the first thing I did, I've never purchased nectar for a hummingbird. And I got all these hummingbirds, so I said, I'm going to see if they like it. And I know they do. So I bought some nectar for hummingbirds, and I've got a little station, the hummingbird little thing where they drink it. And that was a little pleasure I loved today. And let me see if there's one out there right now. A lot of them here. In fact, it's kind of like a bird sanctuary. It's kind of neat. But I digress. Let's get back to Sherman Skolnick on the Investigative Journal. Oh, by the way, before I get back to Sherman, they call hummingbirds in Spanish is colibris. Colibris. Something like that. Here we go with Sherman Skolnick.
So, our problem, basically, you want to call it a problem, is because I, as the head of the group, have been active at this going on 48 years. We have over 1 million documents, secret notebooks, paper records of all types and kinds. We are extremely knowledgeable, and it floors some people, and those that are not familiar with our work going back so many years tend to call us a liar without listening to us. So,
I know, and that's one of the reasons why I really wanted to have you on this show, one of the reasons why I wanted people to know about your history. So go ahead.
I was expected to be heckled on the sealed indictment question for months, but 60 Minutes apparently was working on the same thing, and without using the word sealed indictment, you'd have to listen to the first segment of the 60-minute program yesterday.
Yeah, get back to this. When I mentioned did they leave Bush and Cheney out to dry, and you said you had your take on it.
Well, the point is, most of the war cabinet are under indictment. Condoleezza Rice, Rumsfeld, and others, right down the line. In fact, in the line of succession for the first 10 names under the current line of succession to the presidency law, the only one eligible to replace him under the 25th Amendment is number 9, the Secretary of Agriculture from Minnesota, who's a farmer.
He probably would do a better job.
Well, we like to joke a little bit at our program to relieve the anxiety. We claim that he'll bring one of his cows to Washington who will munch on the grass around the White House. You know what I'm saying? But the point is, it appears that the theory behind suppressing sealed indictments is more than national security. It's to prevent national hysteria. Because if all of those were released at once, there is a question that they'd have to bring the troops back immediately. There is a question that there might be insurrection in America. There is a question that the American people are not fully informed that we have several 100,000 foreign troops on American soil. I can go into that, but that would take the rest of the program to go into. There's 25,000 Russian troops stationed in the DeSoto National Forest in Mississippi and at Fort Polk, Louisiana. There's 5,000 German troops permanently resident in Alamogordo, New Mexico, and so on. There is several 100,000 foreign troops on American soil.
Now, those 5,000 in Alamogordo I know of well. I've been to that base.
Right.
But anyway, Sherman, we're going to come back and finish up with you in our final segment. Sherman Skolnick, the noted judge buster from Chicago on the Republic Broadcasting Network.
Okay, so we take a break there in 2005, and we come back now to 2000. Fast forward to 2017. Who said we can't be time travelers? Who said? Oh boy, you can do what you, if you have an imagination, you know. I remember as a kid, I had an imagination that was out of this world, and I still have it. And I don't use it as much, though. What's that all about? I guess as you get older, you get stale, so to speak. You got to be, you know, there's this happy. I always wondered, if you could pick two people in the world, could you be half of what they are and half of what the other one is? So let me try that out. You pick the two people you think you could fall in the middle of. So you don't want to be them, but you want to be half of them and half of the other. I would pick Mark Twain and Ernest Hemingway. And I'd like to be kind of in the middle of both of them. Okay, so I'm half Mark Twain, half Ernest Hemingway. Put them all together. Wow, would you have a person there? You know? I mean, it would be a fascinating person, wouldn't it? The personalities of those two, very different. Great, both great writers. So they would have these struggles, I think. Can you imagine Mark Twain? Hemingway, who was word a minimalist, right? I call him a minimalist when you read Hemingway's sentences. And Twain was like the exact opposite. So I said, wouldn't it be great to be just like half of them? I'll be like, okay, mix those together, and I could imagine, I could write, if you could put Twain and Hemingway together, imagine the book you'd come up with, right? If you were half of each. Imagine the struggles. You know, Twain would say something like, grammar doesn't matter. Well, you know, they'd probably agree on that, because one of the things Hemingway always did, if you read his sentences, he always used the word and. He would go on and on sometimes, but very compact. And, you know, he wrote Old Man and the Sea in, 90 pages. A great book. Fantastic book. And when, you know, speaking of children, where are our dreams? Is the New World Order Vatican taking them away? So we can't even dream anymore? We can't believe that we can do something? Well, I'm telling you something. I'm going to tell you right now one of my biggest dreams. And I'm going to do it, money or no money. And I don't care. In fact, I may broadcast from that boat if I get it. But here's my plan. I don't know if you know Hemingway's boat that he had. I'm not going to tell you the make, because there's going to be some sneak artist out there that'll steal my idea. You can find it if you want. I doubt if anybody would steal it, because it's kind of goofy from a point of view of making money. And most Americans, all they do is they don't give a shit what they do. All they want to do is make a little money, right? So we lose our capacity to dream. We lose our capacity to take risks. And we lose our capacity to be who we are. So here's the deal, because that goes back to what they're doing to you. Take away your mind, body, soul. Okay, here's what I want to do. I told you a long time ago, I love thinking of new ideas about businesses. Okay, and I've owned a few in my life. I've owned newspapers. I've had a couple small newspapers. I own restaurants. But, you know, I want something different now. And here's what I've come up with, along with a good friend of mine who's an expert in this field. And what we're doing is we're going to find the exact model boat built in the 30s that Hemingway had. It's called the Pilar, his boat. You'll find the Pilar that's still docked in Cuba. And you'll see pictures of it. First, he didn't have a fly bridge. Then he put a fly bridge on. And if you don't know what a fly bridge is, learn. Go Google it. Tired of explaining things to people. You can spend your whole life explaining things on the radio. So, me and my friend are looking around for a wheeler. It's called a wheeler. That's the make. And this boat builder was fantastic. Wood boat. And what we want to do is get one, refurbish it, and start a Hemingway tour. So what we'll do is kind of do a theatrical thing on the boat where people will come and actually think they're going to be with him for the afternoon and pay a good sum. And the boat will look exactly like his. We're going to dock it somewhere that'll make it be like, not, you know, I don't want to go like to L.A. or anything like that. It's going to be in a nice place, probably in a foreign country, where people will think they're in Cuba, but they're not. And we'll turn it into a Hemingway experience. And what'll make it even different, it's not just going to be go out and fish a little bit. We're going to have like videos, and we got my friend who's done research on Hemingway's life and death and how the CIA killed him. We're going to tell the truth about what happened to him in the end, because he got a bad rap. And he was being drugged to death. And they said he committed suicide in Idaho, and that's a false statement. So we're going to try to clear his name as well as give him a chance, through people, a chance to see it up close and personal, kind of a little theatrical event on a boat. And that's my dream. And I'm going to do it. Now, I don't have the money to do it. I know I got to raise some money, but it's going to happen. Just like you're going to start getting people to make this show continue. And go to my website at arcticbeacon.com and press that donate button. You know? Why not? If you want to keep listening to this show, that's there's a reality to life. Sometimes it's sad, sometimes it's not. But you can make things happen. Don't lose your dreams. Don't get into this rut, because I know what ruts are. Get out of it. You can be a spiritual person and still have dreams of this place or what you're doing now. Can't you? Because I meet a lot of Christians that are depressed. But I'm not going to let it happen to me anymore. That's my statement today. Let's get back to Sherman Skolnick. Well, anyway, we're not going to get back to him right now. Yes, we will.
A show like this really gets my blood boiling. It really brings me back to when I was a kid in Chicago listening to and seeing Sherman's name in the old Daily News and the old Chicago Sun-Times. Back when, there was still a semblance of truth trying to be brought out by a few journalists. Sherman, how's that changed over 40 years?
Well, before we run out of time,
go ahead.
I'll try to answer your question if we don't run out of time. But first, I want to give website addresses and
so. By the way, maybe if we can get our schedules together, I'll have you on for another hour later in the week, so we'll talk later. Go ahead.
To find out how to subscribe to my email list, to get my reports as soon as we issue it. Remember, there's already 200 reports posted on my website over the last 7 years. But to get my current reports as they are frequently issued, send an email to me, Skolnick, Skolnick, at Ameritech.net, and that's Ameriitech. Skolnick at Ameritech.net. We get a lot of emails, so please put in there, I want to get on your email list, and we will tell you how to subscribe. Skolnick at Ameritech.net.
Okay, Sherman, in the last few minutes here, wrap up for us what we've been talking about.
Well, wait a minute. My first website is www.skolnicksreport.com, and that's after my name. On my homepage on skolnicksreport.com are what they call links for those that are new to the internet. And one of the links takes you to my other website, cloakanddagger.de. D as in David, E as in Edward. But the link is on my homepage. And that is a magazine format together with internet radio worldwide. And then there's another very complete archive, the link of which is on my website, SkolnicksReport.com. Now, as to...
got a couple minutes, so go ahead.
What was your question again?
I just wanted you to recap for us just your final thoughts about Fitzgerald, about the whole situation, and what you see coming down the pike.
I believe because of the things that are yet to be revealed to the American people, who may go up the wall about it if it's all brought out at once, the establishment is very worried. I believe that we may have to have a suspension of the presidency temporarily and rule by way of a emergency panel, a troika, 3 administrators, as I mentioned. I know some people that's a scary idea to begin with. It's
to me, it isn't scarier than what we have in the White House right now.
Well, the fact that there may be an insurrection. The danger is that Bush, Dr. Justin Frank analyzed him in a book called Bush on the Couch, that Bush is a megalomaniac, a very sick man, a dry drunk from too much liquor and cocaine, and he may do something weird, such as blow up some buildings and claim that the Arabs did it when special forces did it, or when some globalists did it.
Yeah, it sounds like something that already occurred on 9/11. By the way, you did report, too, that he was on the verge of a psychiatric collapse, perhaps.
Yes, that's true. He had almost a psychiatric collapse last week at a press conference. Maybe some people forgot and didn't notice that, but he almost went berserk because of a question that was put to him.
You know, Sherman, we are just about out of time. I want to thank you again. You can get to Sherman at www.skolnick, skolnicksreport.com or cloakanddagger.de. And Sherman, we're going to get you on again on the Investigative Journal. Thank you again for all this information. I've enjoyed it. I know the listeners have, and we'll have you on again.
The listeners should support this program. You're trying to bring them the truth. They should support this program in whatever way they can. And thank everybody for listening.
Thank you. Thanks, Sherman. We've got to go. I got 2 seconds. Goodbye on the Republic Broadcast Network.
You see what he said back then? Hey, support the show. You know? Sometimes you got to put your money where your mouth is, right? And I don't mean to talk crudely, but that's how we talk in Chicago. And when I talk to a guy, even though he's not here anymore, from my hometown, we have a tendency to talk that way. You'd have to live there to know what I'm saying. But anyway, I got 2 minutes. I enjoyed that interview, Sherman, and I did many more. And I look back on it and I go, you know something, you have to learn about things in a certain way. And a certain way was to get deep into it and then understand, look, that people are saying, well, Bush and Cheney never got indicted. That what he was doing and what happens now, look back at it. It shows you the fix is in. There were, back at that time, these indictments there, but it was never going to be anything. Because, you know, he's talking about what Bush was like in the White House. He was. I went through the Bush administration. It was a joke. And now they got another jokester in there. And in between, they always rotate now. It's like, give us what's going to be next? When's the first well, we already have. Let's not talk about Phyllis, you know who I'm talking about, Joan Rivers. We'll get to her. But what I'm getting at is Sherman was a good interview, and if you think that it's not important to listen to that, think about it. It shows you how the fix is in. All those people, Condoleezza Rice, Bush, Cheney, they're still, you think they ever were worried that they're going to be, for one day, getting booked and put in jail? Forget about it. They're protected. It's all a game, and that's how you learn how the game works. So anyway, let's watch the big show unfold in Washington and in the world, because we're right in the middle of it now. And you know something? We'll be back tomorrow to talk a little bit about that on the Investigative Journal. Have a good evening. See you tomorrow.
The book of Revelation says, the spirit of prophecy is the testimony of Jesus Christ. This is at the very heart of FirstAmendmentRadio.com. In that spirit, we have created the Prophecy Reality News app for all of your mobile devices, streaming First Amendment Radio 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Available for your Apple, Android device, and smartphone, absolutely free. Get the Prophecy Reality News app installed today so you can listen to First Amendment Radio wherever you are. The Prophecy.
Since the beginning of time, kings have sought it, nations have fought for it. It has been traded, it has been borrowed, it has been purchased, it has been stolen. There's a reason for it. To secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and to our posterity. Invest with the security of gold and silver. Call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188 or visit discountgoldandsilvertrading.net. Listen to Financial Survival with your host Melody Cedarstrom right here on FirstAmendmentRadio.com at 4 p.m. Eastern or 1 p.m. Pacific Time. Visit discountgoldandsilvertrading.net or call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188. Toll free 1-800-375-4188.